大家好，歡迎大家收睇綠豆頻道嘅周日講邊科電影篇，我係主持人嘉良。香港嘅鬼片咧，從來都係香港商業電影嘅一個主流嘅類型嚟嘅。咁但係近年咧，我哋都好似好耐未睇過一部話題之作。咁但係最近咧，有一部電影叫《七月返歸》，就成為咗大家一個話題，因為佢當中有好多我哋香港共同嘅一啲回憶，同埋一啲共同嘅感覺。咁啊，今日好開心，我哋邀請到《七月返歸》嘅導演謝家祺導演同我哋傾偈。家祺你好，阿你哋你好。
大家好，大家好，我係謝家祺，呢七月返歸嘅編劇導演嘉良你好。
阿你好啦嚇，呢度都鬧教嘢。
你對眼係咪可以見到嗰啲嘢㗎？
唔知唔好理，眼見唔到，佢哋就會埋嚟㗎啦。
你好啊，好多謝你抽時間同我哋傾下偈。你部作品就嚟緊會喺英國嘅 Halloween 嘅檔期上映啦，我哋都好開心，亦都好期待，好多觀眾都好期待去睇啦。因為個感覺就係我好似好耐都未睇過鬼片啊，真係驚嚇恐怖嘅鬼片啦。可唔可以講少少咧？即係以我所知，你嘅過往就係即係一部恐怖小說作家啦。突然之間呢一部就係你第一部嘅作品，可唔可以講講呢個轉變同埋心路歷程咧？
哦，好啊，係啊，其實我一路都有寫開恐怖小說嘅。咁其實我寫恐怖小說其實最初衷咧，其實我都係始至想成為一個恐怖片導演嘅，即係好係啊。咁其實喺冇得拍之前咧，咁唯有能夠做嘅就係練習咯，即係喺紙上邊練習咯。咁我就不斷去寫嗰啲恐怖故事，其實就係希望啦，但願有一日自己拍到自己嘅電影嘅時候咧，嗰啲就可以喺紙上邊係試咗一次先咁。咁其實我喺寫嘅過程咧，我寫到譬如我寫一堆之後咧，我又會自己出去拍咗去嘅，即係攞短片咧5分鐘去講一講呢個故事咁。咁即係其實一路都好想就係練習，就係寫完之後就自己攞去做拍短片，擺 YouTube 咁樣不斷喺度試咯。咁之後就參加咗 MM2 嘅一個之前2017年嘅新晉導演比賽。咁我又係submit 咗一條恐怖片啦。咁佢哋就喺個比賽度好慶幸咧，我就同另外2位師兄啦一齊贏咗個比賽。咁就係濁水漂流啦，同埋窄路微塵，跟住而家到七月返歸，我哋3位導演都係第一個首部劇情。咁係 MM2 一路由劇本開發到而家拍攝咗完成啦，咁一路就行出嚟。
哇！你嘅古仔咧，即係呢個係好鼓勵同埋一個好勵志嘅故事啊！本身已經即係由你本身好想做電影導演，跟住咧就透過好多練習，透過寫小說，透過拍短片，跟住就真係所謂嘅夢想成真。可唔可以講下你用咗幾多時間去鋪排去練習？例如你寫咗幾多個古仔啦，跟住拍咗幾多個短片啦，跟住最後真係攞到個電影拍長片電影嘅機會。
其實最初咧，我中意寫小說咧，就好想即係能夠，你知寫作就好想能夠有一本實體嘅小說出現咁啦。咁我當時我係走去嗰啲書局咧，然之後揭到啲書嘅最尾一頁咧，就抄低晒嗰啲出版社嘅地址。然之後我嗰陣時我用原稿紙寫，跟住我就寄咗好多原稿紙去唔同嘅各大出版社。咁但係都冇回應嘅，得不到回應嘅。跟住但係就網絡嘅小說開始盛行啊，即係高登啊、討論區、香港討論區啊，咁嗰啲啊開始有網絡小說嘅出現啦，亦都興起一個咁嘅潮流啦，可以話。咁嗰陣時我就既然係咁，我就將我譬如我之前交嗰啲，咁我又抌上去網絡啦，咁就係嗰陣時開始咗儲咗一班讀者啦。即係追睇我啲股嘅， 咁就慢慢就儲咗之後，就有出版社接觸我，跟住然之後就話：喂，不如出實體書啦咁。咁其實到今次我去拍長片嘅時候，或者我寫長片劇本嘅時候咧，嗰陣時喺討論區寫作咧，我覺得好幫到手㗎，因為咧每一場其實即係劇本裏邊每一場都唔可以即係話多餘㗎嘛，即係其實每一個所謂環環相扣，每一場其實都係要吸引，要有佢嘅功用。而呢一樣嘢就係好喺譬如高登嗰陣時咧，好學習到，因為我每一日都有出 post 嘅，每一日都會有連載嘅。咁但係咧個事實就好快話俾你知啊，你啲嘢唔吸引咧就冇人追嘅，但係你啲嘢一夠吸引咧，就好多人會推 post 好推 post。咁所以每一日你寫到咁上下，你就知今日你點都要有一啲嘢係 attractive 嘅，你點都要有一啲嘢係有嘢咯，有戲劇張力嘅，咁先可以留到一班觀眾。咁原呢樣嘢就係我喺寫劇本嘅時候，我覺得好有用嘅，係即係嗰一種就係我要戲劇節奏、戲劇節奏、戲劇節奏。
呢條村之前都有啲奇怪嘅 case。
知唔知我阿媽摸條脷啊？
佢哋話蘭姨係燒炭自殺，件事冇可疑，唔會開爆。
我又生咗你呢個期待。有時要安安分分，唔好打攪人啊！
追翻嗰好多觀眾睇完就係咧，佢本身以為係一套典型嘅恐怖片，但係你慢慢睇落之後，好多觀眾俾我哋影後嘅觀影之後咧，佢哋就發覺，喂唔係喎，好似我情緒好複雜。我又好似唔係齋俾你嚇，但我又睇到有一啲好複雜情緒嚟，有啲人話好觸動，有啲人話會喊，有啲人會感受到一種好壓抑嘅氣氛咁樣。佢本身個架構係一個恐怖片，但係其實裏邊其實係都有一啲我自己對於呢家嘅世界嘅睇法嘅世界觀都係擺咗去，因為我就係唔想淨係做一啲齋嚇觀眾一跳嘅電影啦。其實齋做一啲 jump scare 或者齋做一啲嚇你嘅話咧，其實相對簡單。咁所以內容就變得好重要，即係其實一定要有內容去承載。咁而其實過往我哋睇過嘅好多經典啦，譬如《山海經》啊、《聊齋志異》啊，其實佢裏邊都係講緊一啲好普世價值觀嚟噶嘛。但係佢係用咗一啲奇幻啊、恐怖啊，或者一啲怪物嘅形態啊，去包裝。但係其實佢裏邊就係講緊一啲普世價值嘅。而呢種普世價值就係我覺得好有教育意義啊！
好認同啊！即係恐怖片有個好特色之處咧，就係佢真係有啲嘢係令你記得。如果係啦，而個作者而好想透過呢個手法去再另一啲將一啲信息傳遞咧，咁係一個好有效嘅一個方法咯。七月返歸係即係我都開頭咧，即係睇個標題啊或者理解啦。未知道任何事情嘅時候，都會覺得會唔會係一部又係典型，即係啱你講嘅，就係 jump scary 或者嚇你嘅電影。跟住一睇咧，發現係超多元素，同埋即係由個人層面、家庭去到一個村，再大啲就係個社會，即係成個係好多元素去承載住喺呢個電影裏邊。我想問下呢個作品嘅緣起係點樣？點解會最後如果有一個機會寫一個電影劇本啦，咁你就而家用咗一個七月返歸呢個故事，你個緣起係點解咧？
其實個緣起係打從我一開頭寫即係恐怖小説嘅時候咧，其實我訪問咗好多有陰陽眼嘅朋友。咁我訪問佢哋嘅時候，你有冇㗎？
你有冇㗎？
我冇。
OK。
係啊。咁但係但我身邊好多，我亦都曾經同一個男仔嘅朋友，佢係我 roommate 嚟嘅嗰陣時，以前嘅 roommate 咧，佢係有陰陽眼，咁所以我都從佢身上聽過好多。咁但係咧，我問佢哋，我資料搜集嘅時候咧，就問佢哋話：喂，咁你見到嗰啲恐怖嘢嘅時候，你會點樣處理啊？咁樣，佢哋90%人都答咗我一個相同嘅答案，我覺得好得意嘅就係。佢哋話梗係扮見唔到啦，你唔特登搞佢，佢哋都唔會特登嚟搞你咁。呢樣嘢好觸動我，當時好觸動我就係話 原來有一個咁樣嘅取態去面對佢哋嘅恐懼。咁其實縱使我唔係一個有陰陽眼嘅人，其實我而家面對住社會，我企喺社會裏邊，有時我見到一啲好唔公平、唔公義嘅事件，其實某程度上我哋都好容易會將呢啲事視而不見，扮睇唔到，盡量同問題拉一個安穩少少嘅距離咁樣嘅。咁但係代唔代表呢件事係冇發生過咧？咁我就係呢個我就覺得呢樣嘢好觸動我，就所以喺七月返歸嗰度就想探討下。
係啊，即係如果我哋唔劇透啦，但係即係好想大家有機會睇完之後咧，都即係我估真係心神領會嘅。我估觀眾即係特別香港人，即係唔係淨係話嗰個氣氛或者屋邨，而係當中嘅信息，即係我估係大家都會有好多體會喺裏邊啊。所以即係好多謝Nate 可以拍咗一部《七月返歸》去俾大家睇。
多謝。
唔好行開，以下係綠豆仔廣告時間。綠豆讓彼此看見嘅閱歷，印有香港、英國、台灣、澳洲、加拿大同美國6個地方嘅假期。
身處唔同地域嘅人都啱用，夠晒實用。
即刻去呢度買啦！
大家好，歡迎大家繼續收睇周日講邊科電影篇嘅第2 part。咁我哋好開心可以繼續同7月返歸導演Nate 繼續傾偈。Nate 啱你講到咧，就係你係恐怖電影片嘅迷，係啦，即係我估你都應該有好多，即係無論港產片啊，或者即係歐美嘅恐怖電影啊、鬼片啊，你都好中意啦。或者甚至乎你出翻骨有冇啲做過呢啲參考咧？你分享下你邊啲係你最中意嘅、最深刻嘅，亦都講下7月返歸有冇一啲電影係，有啲 part 其實可能去某啲電影致敬嘅喎。
係啊，其實就由60年代開始嘅恐怖片咧，其實我都一路有煲嘅。咁而我真係最中意係60、70年代咧嗰種邪教式嘅電影嘅，即係例如波蘭斯基嘅《Rosemary's Baby》啊，《怪房客》啊，有套叫《The Wicker Man》啊。咁佢無論係嗰個氣氛，因為佢個氣氛咧其實好 slow burn 嘅。咁我好中意呢一種類型嘅恐怖嘅。咁當然到之後好多大師嘅作品啦，《Shining》啊，咁嗰啲都係中意啦。咁其實當呢啲之後咧，其實之後就到90年代嘅 J Horror，即係鬼祟兇靈啊、貞子啊、咒怨啊嗰啲啦。咁一路啦 keep 住我都係 study 落去啦。咁究竟佢哋做緊咩咧？點解有一啲咁嘅效果出現咧？咁90年代 Horror 之後又有jump scare 勁啲嘅，官能勁啲嘅，譬如泰國嗰啲啦，咁我又有睇泰國嗰啲啦。咁當然就不能不提就係香港啦。香港嘅其實好多都好經典、好勁嘅港產恐怖片嘅，例如猛鬼佛跳牆，唔知你有冇聽過？
哇！
好舊嘅，
我係冇睇過，不過聽過。猛鬼
佛跳牆係啊，猛鬼佛跳牆啊，見鬼啊，異度空間啊，熱血青年啊，咁呢啲都係我細個成日都會睇嘅，而係永恆地已經成為咗我嘅童年陰影嘅。即係到2000後，我哋其實已經恐怖片有一個其實都有一啲好唔同嘅新轉向出現，即係譬如而家 nowadays 好多 Blumhouse 啊、A24啊，佢哋嘅恐怖片咧。其實佢裏邊已經係真係唔係純恐怖啦，而佢係有一啲導演信息咧，佢係想表達嘅，即係譬如 Get Out 啊，或者之前有套係 It Follows 啊，咁我覺得都玩得好好。It Follows 其實佢係講年青人性濫交咁樣嘅，跟住而講到譬如純氛圍嘅純恐怖，好恐怖，而大家都覺得高質嘅。原來我哋屈指一算已經係講緊10年前嘅僵屍啦，即係僵屍已經離我哋10年啦。原來咁，所以我就覺得哇，我哋真係其實失去咗呢個類型好耐。而呢個類型本身係我哋喺港式嚟喺香港港產片嚟講一個好重要嘅一個類型嚟噶嘛。而佢再可以變奏做一啲驚喜劇啊，譬如回魂夜啊，例如僵屍先生啊，咁佢又有驚又有笑噶嘛。而呢啲都係我哋嗰陣時係好影響到其他亞洲地方噶嘛。咁但係 你發現就係呢10年啊，都可能投資者都唔係好敢投資啦，亦都冇乜人開始寫呢類型啦，咁所以就一有呢個機會，我就好想做呢個咁嘅作品。
係絕對認同，同埋覺得即係去有翻呢個嘗試好重要。即係我啱阿呢次講到，即係香港嘅鬼片啊，或者呢個類型嘅片，其實確實喺嗰個年代，我覺得都係深深影響緊唔同亞洲啊，或者甚至乎即係其他地方嘅一啲所謂恐怖電影嘅諗法。因為嗰陣時嘅香港電影咧，確實係好癲嘅，啱講喎，即係好敢玩，好敢試，係啦，唔需要即係所謂絕對邏輯，但係咧就透過你電影語言，透過你個氛圍，透過個古仔，就有好多嘗試喺裏邊咯。咁我覺得呢個係我覺得即係其中一個香港電影即係好需要保留嘅嘢啦。喺創作七月返歸拍製嘅過程裏邊，有冇啲好深刻嘅即係片段咧？無論同可能演員嘅互動啦，嗱今次就係 AK 第一部即係叫做擔正嘅長片啦，跟住你另一位嘅主演就係白玲姐啦，一位資深嘅前輩啦，即係好唔同喎，即係有唔同嘅演員喺裏邊，有冇一啲深刻嘅片段啊？
白玲姐毋庸置疑啦，我覺得即係佢其實仍然都係，我覺得係如果唔揾佢咧，其實都唔知揾邊個去飾演衛蘭呢個角色啦。因為其實寫衛蘭嘅時候，我哋都知道佢嗰種愛與恨嘅轉換咧，其實係好激烈噶嘛。咁所以要拿捏得咁精準，而喺又唔係話我哋好多場口裏邊交代佢嘅背景之下，白玲姐真係我哋嘅不二之選嚟嘅。咁我哋好榮幸可以請到佢過嚟，為我哋拍七月返歸啦。咁 AK 啦 ，AK 就係佢又係一個新人啦。咁又我又係一個新導演啦。咁而呢一個嘅合作咧，我哋反而咧覺得係好舒服嘅，因為有咗一種我稱佢為戰友嘅關係嘅。
我就係 AK 啦，亦都係七月返歸嘅向榮。我哋依家嚟到呢個愛民村嘅7樓，但係其實呢度係一個工廈嘅其中一層，我哋將成層改建咗做呢個愛民村嘅內景。大家睇下呢班街坊喺度食飯，
即係我哋會傾咯，即係我哋會，因為其實點解我揾佢咧？其實係好初期我哋 casting 嘅，我哋 casting cast 佢翻嚟嘅。咁其實喺 casting 裏邊咧，已經俾我見到佢，喂，其實唔同佢平時我哋男團見到嘅一個陽光啊，好多嘢講啊嘅年青人，嗰個只不過係其中一個喺男團嘅面向。原來佢有更多嘅面向，我哋係可以覺得睇到而係好睇嘅。咁所以佢係喺個 casting 裏邊最令我有感覺嘅就係佢有一種不確定性。即係我唔係好 predict到，譬如有時你會好大概知道你揾一個演員翻嚟，佢會做到嘅嘢 fit 落呢個人物上邊，佢會有一種點嘅效果，或者你會大概知道佢點演咁樣噶嘛。咁但係AK 一開頭咧就係佢 fit 落向榮嗰度咧，就係我同監製都覺得有一種可塑性出現嘅。即係佢可能會帶到更多佢嘅 input 落去，咁呢個亦都係我哋好希望睇到。而佢喺做驚嗰啲樣，我哋都覺得係好睇嘅。因為如果男仔做驚樣咧，其實幾難㗎。佢一做得歪少少咧，男仔一做得歪少少，你就會覺得佢變成懦弱嘅，又或者你說服唔到觀眾，喂，做乜鬼咁驚啊咁樣。咁佢係拿捏得好好嘅，即係我哋大家都係新，我哋想試新嘢啦。佢又好想甩咗，即係頭先所謂嘅嗰種好陽光啊，被定型為嗰啲愛情小品電影嗰啲陽光男孩啊，係啦，所以。一開始我同佢講，已經同佢話：喂，你唔好指意我拍得你靚仔喎，唔會話錯嘅喎。跟住佢話：喂，正啊，直頭係。
嚟緊你部作品就將會喺唔單止香港上啦，即係嚟緊會喺英國啦。你有冇一啲信息或者説話想同海外嘅香港觀眾去講嘅咧？透過呢個作品。
希望首先最緊要就係希望喺英國嘅朋友仔啦，即係其實英國朋友仔我諗好多都掛住香港嘅，咁所以七月返歸係會俾到你呢種你懷念嘅香港味俾你嘅。咁同埋最緊要就係 俾世界各地更多嘅人知道啦，其實香港都仲有恐怖片類型嘅電影喺度嘅，我哋一路都努力緊繼續 develop 好啲喺呢個類型上邊試更多嘅可能性嘅。咁所以無論喺英國嘅本地人啦，或者係英國嘅香港朋友仔咧，希望你哋都中意七月返歸，又或者喺七月返歸裏邊帶到揾到屬於自己嘅感覺。
十分之好啊！我都好期待即係英國嘅本地觀眾去睇完七月返歸之後咧，有啲咩感受。如果有機會，我哋都收集一啲俾你知道，睇下佢哋有咩 feedback。好，多謝你，多謝嘉良，多謝英國嘅朋友仔。好，拜拜，拜拜。
唔好行開，以下係綠友仔廣告時間。喂，Bean Store 開張啦！由尊子、黃照達、阿圖、黎達特榮、Stella So、VA 黃 Sir 等10幾位香港漫畫家同傳媒人設計嘅綠豆紀念品有得賣啦！佢哋以讓彼此看見嘅主題，憑畫記憶，仲印製成2024月曆、心意卡同明信片，以實物聯繫各地香港人。快啲去 Bean Store 揀啦！
好歡迎大家繼續收睇我哋呢一集嘅節目。我哋好開心，今集咧我哋有一 part 咧，我哋係邀請到愛丁堡嘅一位專門教電影同埋研究香港電影嘅教授 Dr. Francis 嚟同我哋分享一下喺英國本地嘅 Halloween 戲院或者電影院嘅一啲文化。Hello, Francis, how are you today?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me to speak about this.
I know that you told me that you every year you spend some time with friends to go to maybe London and then to watch some Halloween film. Is it what is this habit, and would you share a little bit more about it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so so I'm quite a big fan of horror films and horror movies. So I watch them all year round, and quite a few of my friends are big horror film fans as well. So if a new film comes out in a franchise that we really like, we will sometimes travel to see each other to see the film together. So what you're talking about there actually was last year, the new Halloween film. It was called Halloween Ends. So that long Halloween franchise since 1978. I became really good friends with somebody when I was on my undergraduate degree, actually, over this franchise. He really liked it and he showed it to me, and we went to see the films at the cinema, but we live quite far away. So he lives in Germany and I live in Scotland. So quite far. So actually what we decided to do last year when the film came out, we actually met in London, sort of halfway between the two of us. We actually saw a film called Smile, which was another horror. Yeah, so we did like a double bill of horror. So we do that actually most whenever a new Halloween film comes out. Either I go to Germany or he comes to Scotland, or we meet in London to see it together. Yeah.
For the cinema, during the Halloween period of time, and any special or any trends is changing from in the UK. Any observation you can share about it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think there are a few trends that are changing. So something that your viewers may know or may not know is that in the UK, there's kind of two film cultures. There's a kind of mainstream film culture, which is in sort of commercial multiplex cinemas, and they show new films, mostly Hollywood or English language films. And then on the other side, there is the independent or kind of art house, what we call art house, kind of more artistic films. And they're often foreign language or old or documentaries. And in those venues, in the art house independent venues, they quite often will program a season of horror films around October or around Halloween. So I used to work at a cinema called Home in Manchester, as you know, Carling, and that used to, or it still does, I think, it has a series called Film Fear. And that is a collaboration with Film 4, which is a television channel, so hence the name. And every year they show quite a lot, I think maybe like 10 horror films from all over the world. And quite a lot of cinemas are doing that now. So there's quite a healthy independent cinema scene in the UK. And if you look at your local independent cinema, they'll probably have a season of films that they have curated. And it might just be 2 of the employees that love horror that are allowed to screen 3 or 4 films or something. So that's definitely a trend. And I think that's existed for a long time, but it seems very popular at the moment. Another one that I was thinking of is things like cult cinema or all-night screenings. So here in Edinburgh, last night, actually, I didn't go, but last night the Cameo, which is a cinema here, did a marathon of, I think, 7 films. It started at 11 p.m. last night, finished at 9 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and it was,
intense.
yeah, I know. And it was showing films like Candyman, which so lots of American horror films, Hellraiser. And the last film was a surprise film, which is, I mean, it starts at 7 in the morning. So like, yeah, I don't know. That sounds quite intense to me. So that's definitely a thing. And then the other one that I was thinking of was like those multiplexes, those commercial cinemas actually have started showing old horror films like The Shining or some of those American horror films from the 70s and 80s. You see quite a lot at the main cinemas as well.
Yeah, I can see The Shining is still keep rerunning and rerunning again and again. So for the local audience, is it that the classic horror or thriller film for them is still very popular, and they quite keen to go to cinema at that period of time during the Halloween, right? But other than out of the period of Halloween, they still very keen to watch horror film, ghost film, or thriller film. Is it what was that? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. So definitely Halloween, there is a concentration of those films. So I always notice from September to November, there's a lot more horror films showing at the cinema. So when you go to the cinema in August, a lot of the trailers are horror films that will come out in September or October. Yeah. But they do come out for the rest of the year, definitely. And I think, like I was saying before, I was thinking about this, that horror, I think, is one of the few genres that is sort of surviving against the franchise film. So I have a Fast and Furious poster there, like Fast and Furious, Marvel, Star Wars, Mission Impossible. They're kind of, every film that comes out now is number 7 or number 8 or number 9 or number 10, and there's not that many new films, as in, when I say new, I mean an original scripts or with not characters from something else. But I think horror is the one genre that is surviving compared to comedy, thrillers, everything. There's always horror films. So even in January and February, you get horror films. Like Megan was a really big film earlier this year, and that came out in January, I think, and that was a horror. But I think you're right. I think Halloween, the kind of celebration and the festival element, I think brings people want to go and celebrate, so they want to go to the cinema, because films are such a big part of horror films are such a big part of kind of scary culture.
And any suggestion for you if we would like to let the local audience know more about the Hong Kong horror or ghost film in the UK? Do you think, will you suggest some titles for us to see? Maybe the UK audience, local people would like to watch it or curious to watch it.
Yeah, totally. I think there's loads. Hong Kong has such a good horror history in horror cinema. I think there's loads that could do really well. And so I think in the early 2000s, there was a few films that actually were released on home media, on DVD in the UK. And that was films like The Eye and Dumplings, the Fruit Chan film.
Yes.
With Miriam Yang eating.
見鬼 is The Eye， 彭氏兄弟導演嘅。Dumplings 就係餃子，係啦，就係陳果導演嘅。Yeah.
And then I think some of the older films would be really popular with like that cult audience. So I think those early 1990s, category 3 films like The Untold Story, I think.
白仙飯店之人肉叉燒包。 優嚟Herman directed by Herman Yeo, and then starring is Anthony Wong 黃秋生. It's very classic. This one I like it.
Yeah. And him and Yao, he's made 4 films this year, so maybe he can take a rest and we can show some of his like older films
for
a while. And then actually I was thinking some of the old Shaw Brothers films, I thought of one called The Oily Maniac. I think because people really like those, the old martial arts and kung fu films in this country. So I think there's Shaw Brothers horror films, I think could be a potential type of horror film from Hong Kong that hasn't actually been released here before.
I think you talk about Spooky Encounters, 鬼打鬼, is by Samuel Hong金寶, directed,
I think that film would do quite well because it's quite funny, it's quite scary. Samuel Hong is quite well known in the UK. For fans of the 1980s Hong Kong cinema will know who he is. And actually I showed Mr. Vampire, going to see Xin Sang to some students last year, and they loved it. They really liked Mr. Vampire. So I think that kind of 1980s Sammo Hung vampire horror ghost, I think could be quite good. And in like independent cinemas, I think that audiences would really like that.
Thank you so much, Spencer, for your time and sharing. It's really, really fruitful for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
綠豆仔提提你，想收到綠豆嘅最新資訊，記得 like 同訂閱我哋嘅頻道，同埋分享我哋嘅影片。